I can't stand this nigga. You understand what I'm saying? Like, it's not this ain't WWL. It's not like I just got rap beef with this nigga. I don't like this little nigga. You know what I'm saying? For pretending so much, it makes me sick.
Interesting thing took place today. Brian Cage's wife/girlfriend, I'm not sure how that goes, Melissa Santos, reposted a piece of an article or somebody who had some interesting things to say about Brian Cage. So we're going to go over that, and we're also going to go over some of the reactions of people who seem to have a problem with this. So this is what Melissa Santos posted. Is AEW misusing Brian Cage? He should be on a Brock Lesnar level, ripping through talent with Taz being his mouthpiece. Cage is, to me, lost in the shuffle right now in AEW. He and Powerhouse Hobbs could be an excellent tag team, and Cage in his own right is a top guy in every sense of the word. AEW just hasn't seemed to realize that yet. Hopefully, once the dust settles from all the new arrivals, Cage will get his opportunity and have a chance to shine. And she reposted this and just said, I'm here to leave this right here. And Brian Cage says, everyone who has an opinion on this, which you are rightfully allowed to do, I just want to inform you all that Melissa didn't write that statement about me being misused. She's just posting it and agreeing with it. So, we got to go into the peanut gallery, see what people have to say. All right, so here we go. Brian Cage is meant to be in WWE, not AEW. I hope he becomes the first to migrate over. I hope the opposite. I hope he goes back to Impact, where he was a star. I don't really care.
Lucha Underground, where I met him. You see, Brian Cage is a superstar. Those people who know him from Indies, Impact, Lucha Underground, where I met him, know that he's a superstar. All you have to do is Google him and watch all his matches. PWG. He's a superstar, and he's being misused right now.
Oh, that was Melissa Santos. Okay, I didn't see that coming. I just stumbled across that while I was going through the peanut gallery. And she's his girlfriend. Of course she's going to say that. That's his girlfriend. I'm not mad at her for saying that. So, somebody responded, Brian Cage is a superstar. I agree with him. But he got to stop wrestling like a cruiserweight. Now, I agree with that. He also has to find some way to inject some charisma. You know, does that come in a bottle? You know, could he buy like some anabolic charisma? Brian Cage has underutilized is dumb because he's simply not as good as Ricky Starks or Will Hobbs. Cage is barely serviceable as a promo and is dry toast compared to Ricky. Cage doesn't exude, quote, future star like Hobbs. Hobbs has a better presence as well. Maybe he's just not it. You know, that's a good summation of the events. Is Cage as good as Ricky Starks via promo? Absolutely not. If he had Ricky Starks' charisma with his size, he would already be in WWE. And he would probably be the champion. But, unfortunately, Brian Cage is Brian Cage. And the unfortunate thing about that is there's nothing interesting about Brian Cage. Nothing. Now, is he as interesting as Hobbs? No, because I think Hobbs has the intensity and his body language just in the little, like, all you need to do with Will Hobbs is just look at his facial expressions, like on his renders. He has this almost, you know, the mean mug. He's got it down. He carries tough guy a lot better than Brian Cage. Brian Cage works like a guy who is performing. And I talked about this with Ember Moon. They come across like performers, not as wrestlers. You know, Will Hobbs looks like a tough guy who will beat you up, whether it's in the ring, outside the ring, or in an alley. He'll kick your ass. Brian Cage just looks like a jacked up gym dude who likes to do moonsaults. I don't know why he does that stuff. He just does it. But Brian Cage is going to Evilise himself. Oof. Woof. Woof. I don't know about that. Josh saw the Brian Cage stuff and realized how hilarious the timing of my original tweet was. What was the original tweet, sir? Cody called AEW Ellis Island of pro wrestling, and while the people they took in aren't exactly poor and huddled, they are certainly starting to line up, yearning to breathe free. Yeah, interesting how that goes. Ellis Island, for people who don't know, is where they used to bring in the Jews and the Italians during the days when we had unfettered immigration. We used to just let everybody come in. That's because there was no welfare state, so you had to pretty much come in and fend for yourself. But, they're saying that it's AEW now. That, we just going to open the doors and let whoever come in. It's like those cities got pretty crowded pretty fast, and then they started breaking into tribalist wars where it was like the Irish and the blacks, and then the Irish and the Italians, and they were killing each other all the time. So I wouldn't use Ellis Island. This is probably not a great idea. Anyway, let's continue. Kay's just not taking advance of his opportunity. Advanced. I didn't read that wrong. And has gotten exposed. Will Hobbs is pushed like a monster who has Miro and Jade Cargill in the women's division because they wrestle like people their size are supposed to wrestle. Brian Cage out here trying to do high spots and look cool. Oof. I feel like I'm ahead of the curve on this because I've been saying, God, I wish I'd have started my channel 5 years ago so I wouldn't have to be like, I said this, and people be like, when did you say that? Like, damn. I forgot I spent all my time on these fucking hip-hop boards. Back when I used to have hip-hop boards, I used to be on allhiphop.com all the time. And I used to talk wrestling there. And I remember ripping Brian Cage then for the stuff that he does. He was not good then. I think he was probably Impact World Champion around that time. No, this was longer than that. He was, he might have just been on the Independence. But I wasn't really a big fan of him in Lucha Underground. I certainly was not a fan of him in Impact. That's really when I saw the most of him. So I don't know what to tell you. Let's see. What nutcase thinks Brian Cage should be ripping through people like Brock Lesnar? He looks like an overinflated tire, not a badass. Wow. This should tell you that a lot of stuff is about presentation. If Brian Cage was coming to WWE with his size, and they spent just 6 weeks of Brian Cage picking up gigantic people and tossing them like Otis and stuff, and he's just throwing these guys around, then I think people would change their tune. It's like when Paul Heyman talked about, if Mark Henry could get over a headlock, because you say he's the world's strongest man. If he used a headlock as a finish, people would think it's silly for the first couple of times, and then it'll start to get over, because people will believe that Mark Henry, being the world's strongest man, could crack your head open with a headlock. People would believe it. And I'm not quite sure Brian Cage is that, because I don't think Brian Cage even has functional strength. I've seen him drop people that are half his size, like legit. And I don't. That's one of the reasons why I don't like him. Let's see. Based on the cases of Matt Hardy, Chris Jericho, Matt Riddle, and Brian Cage, if I were to become a wrestler, I beg my wife to keep a low profile on social media. He says, are we all just learning now that Brian Cage is a fucking tool bag? Canyon being his mentor doesn't make up for him still being friends with Joey, openly supporting Drake, clearly being anti-vax, and just overall being a fucking dumb person. Is that the reason why people are attacking Brian Cage all of a sudden? Is because he's friends with the wrong people? I have some very pointed opinions about Chris Canyon. I know people like Chris Canyon, but if Chris Canyon were still alive, I don't think people would be talking about him the same way. Like, people talk about, Owen Hart and Eddie Guerrero, their legacies have been inflated. I'm like, Chris Canyon's legacy has been inflated. I couldn't imagine anybody being more boring than Chris Canyon. Like, he did cool moves. So, shit, I don't care. Sorry. Since it's the go-to topic of the day, what's everyone's honest opinion of Brian Cage? My take is that he started off presented as a real threat, but never could maintain how they presented him. AEW has a lot of good wrestlers, but not much about Cage screams great, unfortunately. If Brian Cage wasn't 36, he probably would have jumped ship to WWE already. But that whole thing with the FTW title didn't help him at all. Let's see. What else we got here? It's such a disappointing thing to see AEW misusing talent like Cage. It's clear those opportunities are going. You think AEW want to be an alternative, but it seems like they're just becoming WWE light. And guys like Cage will be left in the dust for the new toys. Ooh, there's going to be a lot of people left in the dust for the new toys. It's going to be a struggle for them to maintain everybody getting a chance. It's going to be difficult. Let's see. Brian Cage is fine, but aside from his look, I don't see anything special about him. He's not a good talker, and he has no character. With Will Hobbs, Wardlow, Hager, Camarado on the roster, there's a lot of other big men with higher upside. This is great because that's true. That's absolutely true. Now, I'm not so sure with Hager. Hager sucks too. But Wardlow, Hobbs, and Camarado, you might have something with those guys. And they're fairly young. I don't think either one of them is 30 yet. So you have an opportunity there with those particular guys to really do something special. And they better not screw that up. You see, from what I've seen, and it seems she isn't happy unless Brian Cage is world champion and main eventing every show he's on. She didn't say that. She's just saying he's being misused. Please get it correct. She didn't say that. She didn't say he should be in the main event. I've said from the beginning that Brian Cage should have been their variation of a modern Lex Luger. To be honest, Hobbs now has better top guy potential than Cage, but they can both prosper. I think he is kind of Lex Luger-ish. Let's see. Brian Cage left Impact too quickly for AEW. A guy with his size screams out world champion. The problem with him is that he wants to be a big man and wrestle like a cruiserweight. I'm glad everybody noticed this. Since I did feel that Brian Cage could be a possible top guy, would either get cut or AEW just wouldn't resign. You can absolutely understand why him and his wife are frustrated with his position in the company. I would be frustrated too, if we're being honest. He would have been a unique look. When he came in, though, I don't think Hobbs was under contract. Camarado certainly wasn't there. But Wardlow was, being treated as kind of the Batista to MJF. So there was a lane there where they could have pushed Brian Cage as being a top guy. They just chose not to. Why they chose not to, I don't know. But, they're not a fan of pushing big guys. They just aren't. It says after Starks versus Cage, they should have CM Punk and Brian Cage versus Hobbs and Starks. Then maybe do Miro versus Cage. I think Miro versus Cage would be fine. But Miro looks the part, acts the part. He was silly at first, but I think Miro is actually more what Cage should be. But Miro can actually project intensity. Cage cannot. Cage does not come across as being a tough guy. It says Cage is too big for AEW. They have no idea how to book big guys because all their wrestlers are twinks for the most part. I guarantee you someone his size, Vince would have pushed him to the moon. Yes, that would have happened if Brian Cage was just 5 or 6 years younger. If Brian Cage was 30 or 31, absolutely, Vince would take him in a heartbeat and try to push him. But at 36, which I believe Brian Cage is, I don't know. He'd have to get in the system, then he'd have to get over. I think it's worth trying for Brian Cage if he really wanted to. I think he needs to get out of AEW, that's for sure. And if I was him, I would go back to Impact, personally. Let's see. Matt Cardona publicly supported Alberto Del Rio right before his match with Nick Gage. The tweet is still up. Why do you think people ignore certain wrestlers supporting people named and speaking out, but always bring it up about questions like Brian Cage? Oh, this is towards the Bixen span, so they talking gossip. I have no idea what's going on. I don't care who is friends with who. As long as the person not a pedophile, I don't care. So Tony paid this guy while he was injured because he believed in Brian Cage and wanted him in AEW. It's unfortunate. He's got a great look and athletic, had a good match with Hangman, but to be honest, his matches are shitty for the most part. Sloppy spot fest. Yeah, that's true. That really is true. It says Tony Khan, can we use Brian Cage and Will Hobbs as a tag team against the Lucha Brothers soon? I don't see any reason or any option for a major tag team other than this. Get this trios tag belt for Lucha Bros and Pac, and I can write it for you if you need holler. I don't think this guy's following the product because Cage and Hobbs are on different sides. So, one's a heel, one's a babyface. So I think you need to follow the product, sir. Also funny how this is coming up now after a few months of Brian Cage insulted Impact Wrestling, which made him a star. Karma is funny. Oof. Brian Cage is one of the least compelling characters that has ever gotten AEW TV time as of late. Wow. Brian Cage is an awesome talent, but a horrible promo. He comes across as a bland and generic, the Vinnie Mac type, to be honest. I was excited when he first came, but outside of his Hangman match, he's been This is why guys need gimmicks. This is why God needs personas. Guys need personas. Guys need gimmicks. Otherwise, you're going to call them bland and boring and such and such. And I agree. Everything I've seen with Brian Cage has been bland as fuck because he has no personality. He's a gym rat. That's what he's put all his time and energy into. He put all his time and energy into his body. Therefore, somebody needs to come along and put something into his fucking head or put something on that body that make him stand out and make him be something special. But I don't know if, like I said, it's an age issue right now. Said, noticing people now mention Brian Cage's political ideology now that he is complaining but were quiet about it before, and if he praised the company, no one would bring up his political affiliation. By the way, Shad Khan is a Trump supporter as well. I don't know anything about that. It says, the hilarious thing is if Brian Cage was in WWE, they would be agreeing with her, asking for Vince's head. Ooh, wee. The rest of this, let's finish this tweet. But AEW fans have all these built-in excuses to why he should be content where he is. That's a great tweet. That's a great tweet. Ooh, wee, that's a great tweet. Brian Cage, Ethan Page, and Matt Sydal are the 3 AEW wrestlers that, in my opinion, deserve way more TV time. I don't know about Matt Sydal. Matt Sydal should have never left Ring of Honor. He never should have left Ring of Honor. And Ethan Page, he sucks. Someone should tell Brian Cage that vaccines aren't scary. He looks like the kind of guy who goes through needles on a regular basis. Wow. Wow. If I'm Brian Cage, I'd be like, holy shit, I'm swole. I hate Brian Cage. He makes me so angry. Also, this tweet is very giving, Rebby. Imagine pushing Brian Cage when you have CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, Adam Cole, The Elite, Jon Moxley, etc. And that's only the established top guys. The other newer and younger talents even outsold. Can't argue with that logic. How do you push Brian Cage above all those people? You can't. That's why but he was there already. That's the thing. Like, he was there before those guys got there. So if they'd established him and pushed him and made him a top guy, he could be in that class or in that level. Not to me, because I don't like Brian Cage, but the perception would have been different. It said Brian Cage would be a better fit in WWE anyway. Could be seen as too old, but imagine Vince would love the look. Yeah, that's true. Said Brian Cage, he should be on or near the top, but they need more belts, dude. I don't want 40 belts. I don't want 40 belts either. Let's see. Brian Cage is a bad professional wrestler who does everyone else's shit, but doesn't make it look any more impressive and will end up blowing it because he can't get out of his own way when he's in a good position. Is he in a good position? He wrestles like once every couple of months. I don't know if that's a good position. You have to understand, like, the average Joe, if you get sent home and you say, go collect $1,000 a week, go sit in catering, $1,000 a week. The average Joe will be like, I don't have to take bumps and I get to make money without taking bumps. Great. But if you're a pro wrestler, you make more money the more people can see you. Therefore, you being in catering is actually the opposite. It's taking money out of your pocket because you could be making more money. You could be making more money, especially in the ring, because you make more money working than not working. You can make something on the downside guarantee, but you can make more money if you're in the ring, and then you can actually attract more money and attention if you're in the ring. So the average Joe may say to themselves, oh, he's in catering, but he's still getting paid, so that's fine. But the wrestler is saying, I at least need to be on TV. And I can agree with that. I said it about Vince. I'll say it about Tony Khan. Do not hire people if you do not even want to give them a chance. If you do not want to feature them, do not hire them. Okay, so Brian Cage is not all that. He's typical big guy with moves like a cruiserweight and all that shit. We don't care. He's not even the best powerhouse they have. He gets outshined by his tag team partner, Will Hobbs, any day of the week. Wow. Woo. Big Brian Cage fan. Been often saying he belongs in the main event, but after the Stark story. But this really turns me off. Doing this publicly ain't it. So he's not allowed to complain. You can be a fan, but the moment he complains, all of a sudden you're not a fan anymore. He don't know what Brian Cage did, but he is okay. I guess was never a huge fan, but his matches aren't terrible for the most part. Brian Cage should have stayed the big fish in the small pond in Impact. He has gotten exposed badly on a bigger stage in AEW. He is a good talent, but he is only good as a heel. He is meh as a babyface. He's not really that great as a heel either because he's not mean enough. He's a get your shit in guy. He wants to do too much. If Brian Cage would have listened, if I remember correctly, he actually tried out for WWE and they told him not to do all this, the flippity do stuff, and that's why he didn't sign. It's because he wants to do that shit. If he'd have just saved it, save it for a big match. Like, say you're in the ring with Roman Reigns and it's power versus power. And that psychologically you could do something slick like a springboard over the top rope to shock the fans and shock Roman Reigns. Like, oh no, he's not just strength. He can actually do some agility stuff too. That would have taken him to the next level. But he wants to do that shit in every single match and try to show off how good he is. He's a performer. He's not a... Jesus. Especially his wife doing it. I really like Brian Cage, but I would not replace any of the current or past champions with him. His time will come. I should read this thing in Spanish, but I'm gonna not do that. Yeah, Melissa Santos is just defending her man. Nothing wrong with that. She feels Brian Cage could be doing a lot more than they are with him, and she is not wrong. Us Impact fans know what Brian Cage can do. Yeah, we do know what Brian Cage can do, and that's not much more than he's been doing in AEW. Brian Cage has every right to be used better, to want to be used better. Every wrestler in the locker room should want to be used better and pushed higher up the card. I very much doubt any top guy got to where he is by being happy in the mid card. However, doing it publicly ain't it. People don't mind when WWE guys do it publicly. When Andrade was complaining in public, when FTR was complaining in public, when Mike Bennett was complaining in public, nobody cared. Now all of a sudden it's an AEW guy complaining in public, and all of a sudden people are saying, no, keep a lid on it. My thing is, it doesn't matter. Let's see. My question to Brian Cage and his wife is, who should Brian be given time over? Darby? No. Punk? No. Mox? Kingston? Miro? No. I can't think of one wrestler that is on Dynamite or Rampage frequently that I would bump in favor of Cage. AEW has a large roster. Maybe he should go. I agree. He should go. He should go back to Impact. He should go back to Impact. Or go to Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor has almost no big muscly guys. Almost none. They got some big dudes. Josh Woods is great. But they have nobody who looks like Brian Cage. He would be great there. And they'll let him do his flippity dude crap. All right, let's try to do 25 minutes of this. Everyone is talking about Brian Cage. Misused? Maybe. But if I get the impression that due to the opinion of himself clashing with his strengths, apparently he pushed back against not getting to talk early in his run. Brock comparisons? Brock has charisma, especially physical. Absolutely, that is absolutely true. That is true. Brock does have charisma. See, people don't know what charisma is. They think charisma is talking, but charisma is a way of carrying yourself. It is making people want to be like you, making people want to model themselves after you. People being in awe of you. That was the charisma of Andre the Giant. Like, Andre just wasn't a big guy, but Andre carried himself with a certain way. It made people admire him, not just because he was big, but because he was a big, admirable dude. Let's see. Trust. Vince McMahon wants Brian Cage and WWE. Look at his size. I think Vince would probably jump at it, but then he sees Brian Cage doing like a double twisted moonsault, and he'll probably pull his hair out. If Brian Cage was the first big AEW exit, I wouldn't be devastated. No room for egos. In the world of Del Boy, you make your own luck in this world. He has had plenty of chances. He is not happy. Maybe he'll find success in greener pastures. Okay. Just saw someone say Brian Cage should have gotten a match at All Out over Punk, the guy who sold out the United Center on a rumor and broke Pro Wrestling Tees, and that is a take. Let's see. Here's the thing. Brian Cage sucks. Well, short and sweet. That's really what this video could have been. It's like, Melissa Santos, you're beautiful. I love you. But your husband sucks. He looks great, but he sucks. I mean, this video could have been all of 3 seconds. It would have been fine. See, Brian Cage is a perfect example of why I'm not tripping about all these big AEW signings leading to wrestlers being pushed back. I make the argument a shitload of talent that are about to be pushed back should be pushed back to begin with. Cage, Sammy, Hagar, Hardy, QT, Spears, etc. I cannot disagree with anybody on that list. I don't like Sammy Guevara. I do not like Sammy Guevara. He's a toothpick. You see, Brian Cage is a star, but everyone above him right now is better than him. It sucks he's not over yet, because if he was, he'll be in more stories. He needs a mouthpiece. Should have stayed with Starks. Yeah. Let's see. Let's talk about Brian Cage. Brian Cage is a very good wrestler and can do very athletic things for a guy his size. I say he's a good heel. Very good with a mouthpiece in Taz. He's a mediocre face. His Impact run was painfully boring, mostly because he's a meh promo at best. Since turning face in AEW, he has failed to connect with the live audience. In his feud with Ricky Starks, Starks gets either splits or more cheers than him. He has been pushed to his full potential. Hook hasn't wrestled a match, and more people talk about him following Dynamite. Cage is not a bigger star than anyone pushed ahead of him. He's shown little to no improvement from 1 year ago. Just like his matches is just the truth. For him and his wife to go about this way is sad to see. And honestly, if he thinks he should be world champ, go back to Impact. Or work on your promos and show everyone you should be at that level. AEW gives people chances. They've given him chances. Also, he was the worst member of Team Taz. Oh, this guy did 4 or 5 tweets on and didn't miss. Every bullet in that chamber hit. Oh, man. From the looks of it, Brian Cage might just get that push. It seems like Punk is going to feud with Team Taz for a bit, which might mean that Brian Cage might be slotted into the equation as well. Probably not. This is Wrestle Talk TV. Yeah, who cares? Brian Cage will never get it. He's a monster that wants to be a move guy, which is fine if you want to, but if you put ring psychology first, but he never will. That is absolutely true. I like Brian Cage, but face it, he's a charisma vacuum. He has been easily outshone by Ricky Starks at every encounter. True. Brian Cage has charisma and has no connection with the crowd, and Lance's gimmick is straight up corny and confusing. Lance Archer is also being misused by AEW, but I also don't like him either. Like, I'm not such a big mark for the big guys that I just accept anybody who's big, because Lance Archer was never good, and Brian Cage was never good. See, Brian Cage is nobody's reason for tuning into AEW. He's got that big body with zero personality. That's perfect for Vince. He's expendable. Oh. Wow. It says, lads using Brian Cage's wife being upset as a means of going, look, they're mishandling talent. It's one hell of a stretch. I quite like Brian Cage, but the idea you're putting him ahead of Hangman, Danielson, Punk, MJF, Starks, Cole, Darby, or Jungle Boy is absurd. And he's been used fine. Won upon a debut, had a title feud, but beat Hangman, he'll find his spot on talent alone. I do not believe that. All right. It was inevitable that people were going to turn on Brian Cage. It was, it was what it was. But not just Brian Cage, but whoever. Wait a minute. What's this? Brian Cage was liking anti-Black Lives Matter posts and got sent to the nether realm by 2 niggas that were supposed to be his backup in a group. God got the best sense of humor. Wow. He was liking posts that were anti-Black Lives Matter? I don't know. See, I like Brian Cage. Big man can move quicker than most smaller men. Can actually see him moving to Punk's aid in a few weeks. That's going to help him. We'll see. All right, I'm done with Brian Cage. Who cares? Like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel, donate to the channel. Let me know what you guys think of Brian Cage. I know I have some subscribers that are fans. Out yourself. Out yourself, raise your hands, and explain, defend this man, defend your boy. All right, I'll talk to you guys later.
Skin tone, so why attach yourself and piggyback the wealth you didn't earn or lack yourself? I'm telling you to own up to your own success and failures. It's a reason why these sleazy guys